Hi, I'm Zoe Pottrack and this is a video tutorial for the plushie toys that feature in the Crochet Society Spring 2025 box by Elisa Sartori. You'll find the written pattern inside your Crochet Society magazine, and we recommend having this pattern open alongside this video so that you can refer to both at the same time. This pattern is written in UK crochet terms, so that's what I'll be using in this video. If you use US terms, you can find a quick translation on the back page of your Crochet Society magazine. Please refer to the individual patterns for the different plushes for which yarns you'll need and which hooks and needles and so on. What I'm going to do in this video is to show you all of the different techniques that feature across the different creatures. They've all got quite a lot in common, so rather than showing you how to make a magic ring 5 times over, I'm going to show you all the different things inside of one video so that equips you to make any of them. So go ahead, grab some yarn, a hook, according to which one you're making, and then come back here and I'll show you the techniques. So I'm going with the yarn in Lemon Drops, so that's the one that you'd use to make Daphne the Duck, and I'm going to start by demonstrating the beginning part of that, which will help you with all of them. So the first thing that we need to look at is a magic ring, and that's used in each of the projects, so it's useful for all of them. The way that I do that is I take the working end, the tail end of my yarn, hold it between my thumb and my index finger, like so. Wrap the yarn over the top of my fingers, underneath, then back over the top and behind the first strand, and hold that in place with my ring finger. Then I take my hook, grab the yarn, pull it through and twist like so. Then grab the working yarn over and pull it through the loop, and that creates our magic ring. And you want to have the tail end hanging to this side to begin working into the magic ring. So the next thing you'll be doing is working double crochets, and most of the parts start with 6 double crochets into the magic ring. Some of them might start with 8, some of them might start with 10. Just read your pattern depending on the part that you're doing and follow the instructions. A double crochet means to insert the hook into the magic ring, leaving the tail end and the ring itself over the top of the hook. Grab the working yarn and pull it through, so I've got 2 loops on my hook, and then yarn over and pull through both, like so. So that's 1 stitch. I'm going to start with 6, so insert hook, yarn over, pull through, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm just going to check Daphne's instructions. Daphne the Duck, I think that's a lovely name. Yep, she starts with 8, so I'll add 2 more, so that's 6, 7, and 8. And then I'm going to close the magic ring by pulling the tail end, which draws that all up. And if you've done Amigurumi before, you might be used to not joining rounds with a slip stitch, but this pattern and the other patterns in this series actually do join with a slip stitch. So I'm going to put my hook back into the first stitch of my round, yarn over and pull through the stitch and pull through the loop on my hook, slip stitch to join, and then 1 chain to start my next round. So we've done the magic ring, we've done the double crochet, and we've done the slip stitch join. The next thing I want to cover is how to increase our stitches. Again, this is something that you will need for all of the projects in this range. An increase is written in the pattern as 2 DC in next stitch, or 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And for Daphne the Duck, that happens in round 2. It says 2 double crochets in each stitch around, join 16 stitches. So we started with 8, we're increasing to 16. That means we're increasing in every stitch. So I'm going to put my hook into the first stitch, which is the same one that I slip stitched into. Insert hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, and yarn over, pull through both loops. And then I'm going to put my hook for the next stitch back into the same one I've just worked and repeat that double crochet. So that's 2 double crochets in my first stitch and carry on around. So 3 and 4 will be in the same stitch, and 5 and 6 will be in the next one, and so on until you reach 16. got my 16 double crochets there, and I mustn't forget to join that round again with a slip stitch into the first stitch and 1 chain, ready for round 3. Round 3 also has some increases, but this time they're not going to be in every stitch. So the instructions are 1 chain, which I've just done, then 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets in the next stitch 8 times. So the first one just has 1 double crochet in it, and then I'm going to increase in the next stitch, put 2 in the same place, 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one, and you're repeating that around for round 3. In the subsequent rounds you're still doing increases, but they're further apart. So for round 4 you'll do 2 double crochets, so 1 in one stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then an increase in the third stitch. For some of them it might continue increasing, so it might be in the 3 double crochets and then increase in the 4th, or 4 double crochets and increase in the 5th. It will tell you, just read each row, each round carefully, not forgetting to join them with a slip stitch at the end. Once you've reached the maximum size for the piece that you're doing, then you'll stop increasing and you'll just do 1 double crochet in each stitch around. So that covers all the increases. The next thing we probably want to look at is decreases. So I've carried on with this piece a little bit so that you can see the effects of the increases. So we increased from the centre out, and then we've done several rounds where there are no increases, just 1 double crochet in each stitch, and then to pull the shape of the head back inwards we need to start doing some decreases. For example, on Daphne the Duck, on round 13 we start to decrease. So we've got 1 chain at the start of the round as usual, then we have 3 double crochets as normal, so 1, 2, 3, and then 1 DC2 tog, or double crochet 2 together. That's the decrease stitch, and this is how we do it. We insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through as if we were starting a double crochet stitch, and then we also put our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. So now there are 3 loops on our hook and we've worked into the next 2 stitches. Then it's yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, which turns those 2 stitches into 1, and we repeat that around, so it's not a decrease in every stitch, much like the increases, they're spaced out. For Daphne the Duck we do 3 double crochets and then 1 double crochet 2 together on this round. So I'll do another 3, 1, 2, 3 regular stitches, and then a decrease. So insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through all 3. So that covers the decreases. Depending on which pattern you're doing and which round you're on, they'll be spaced out differently. Just read the instructions carefully so that you're putting the right number of double crochets in between each decrease. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about that's common in lots of the patterns is front loop only and back loop only. So I'll just start this round with a couple of regular stitches, and when I do my usual double crochet, you know that I insert my hook under both strands of that V stitch. So not a V stitch, that's a different thing, but the V that forms the top of the stitch looks like a bit of pearl barley. You insert your hook under both strands usually. When the pattern says FLO, it means front loop only, and that's when, instead of putting your hook under both strands, you just put it under the one closest to you. So for example, on Daphne the Duck, round 16 is worked in the front loops only, so you'll just put your hook into the strand on the side closest to you. Conversely, sometimes the pattern will say BLO, or back loops only, and then you put your hook just under the strand furthest away from you. And still performing the stitch as you normally would, but just the point of insertion for the hook is different. So that's front loops and back loops. The next thing on my list to talk to you about is safety eyes. So in your box you'll have received some pairs of safety eyes. They consist of obviously the part that looks like an eye that goes on the front, and then this back piece which goes on the inside of the work on the back of the eye. So your pattern will give you instructions about where to place these. Daphne the duck says insert safety eyes between rounds 8 and 9, approximately 7 stitches apart. So because of the way we're joining this, there'll be a slight seam here, so I'm going to make sure that's the back of the head, and I'm going to make this the front, and I'm going to count my rounds from the centre out. So this is the magic ring in the centre. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my hook there is now between rounds 8 and 9. So I want it to be on this round. And again, looking where the back of that is, I'm going to put 1 here and then 7 stitches apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pop that one in there, and then before I even think about putting the backs on, I'm just going to look at the positioning. Am I happy with how they're positioned in terms of where they are, oops, opposite to the back of the head? Yeah, I think I am. They're definitely positioned on the same row. I haven't accidentally moved one up or down so that they're a little bit lopsided. They look like they're in the right place. So then, and only when I'm certain, because once these backs are on they're very difficult to remove, will I put the backs on. So with the front of the eye through the fabric, I then just push one of the backs onto there until it clicks, and then it won't come off. And the same on the other side. Perfect. And then those are securely attached to your heads. So I've continued a little further on with this so that I can show you the stuffing part of this. When you reach a hole that's a little smaller like this, the pattern will remind you to stuff the animal you're making before you carry on any further. And Daphne the duck does this just after round 15, which is where I've continued on to. It says begin to stuff, continue as you go. So with stuffing, rather than trying to wedge it all in at once, it's often better to put smaller bits in at a time so you've got more control over where the stuffing sits, because you want to give it a nice rounded shape. If you wedge it all in at once, you might end up with something a bit lumpy. So put it in a bit at a time. I would suggest to stuff these fairly firmly to give them the shape that you're after. Keep going until you're happy with the shape, and sometimes it helps to use the wrong end of a crochet hook, especially if you're working with a smaller piece than this that you can't perhaps get your fingers all the way into the corners of. The arms on the gnomes might be one actually that you might need to just persuade the stuff in a little bit more. So carry on with that and make sure you're happy with the shape before you continue on crocheting. Once you've finished a body part, you'll usually find that you finish with 6 or 8 stitches at the end, and we need to close this hole. So I threaded the tail end onto a tapestry needle, and the way, or one way to sew this up, is to take the tapestry needle, inserting it from the inside to the outside of the front loop of the next stitch, pull it through, and again with the next stitch, that's 2. I've got 6 on this final round here, so 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then you'll find that you can draw that up to close the gap. Then make a knot and hide the tail end, unless it instructs you to leave it out for sewing onto another body part. But if you need to hide the tail end because it's finished, insert it back in through the centre, pop it out somewhere else on the head, keep it pulled tight, snip it close to the head, and then that end will just disappear inside and it's gone. So that's all of the basic stitches. I'll just cover the embroidery and then we'll be moving on to things that are for just one or two of the different animals. Okay, this embroidering details onto the faces of your plushies is probably the bit I'm least confident with, so I find it helps to take my time, make sure that when I do it they're symmetrical so he doesn't have an asymmetrical face. And if I'm not happy I can always undo it and redo it, so just don't get stressed out with it. You'll see on this one I've just put a couple of white stitches to highlight the edge of the safety eye, and I've done that by inserting my needle somewhere further back, pushing it through and then bringing it out just at a stitch near the edge of the eye, leaving a little tail end hanging out of where I've just gone in, and then just going to do a back stitch here. Don't pull it too tight else it disappears into the creature. Then I'm going to pop it back in there, and when I finish the stitches I want to do, I pop my needle back out in the same place where I went in the first place, and then I can pull that through and knot these two ends. Oops. And if I've done it right, if I've managed to come out exactly where I went in, I can cut that off and that should be able to pop inside. There we go, it's vanished. So that creates the highlights around the eyes. Just make sure that they're symmetrical. I think if I was doing this to keep, I'd probably do that again because it's not quite, this one's up at the top of the eye, look, and I haven't quite got around the top of the eye on this one. So just take your time with it, make sure they're in the right place, and you'll perhaps have eyebrows to do as well in a different colour, or a nose. So all the same technique really. Pop your needle in somewhere away from where you want it to be, do the stitches you want, and then take the yarn back out of the same stitch where you came in and knot it. So that covers the embroidery, and that's all of the techniques that are common to all of these plushies. I'll get a little bit into the individual bits for each one next. There are some components of these creatures that don't start with a magic ring, instead they start with a chain. For example, the beak for the duck starts with a chain of 5, so I'll make a slip knot by creating a loop and then pushing the working yarn up through the loop, pop it on my hook and do a chain of 5. A chain is just yarn over and pull through, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in particular the beak for the duck starts with 2 double crochets in the second chain from the hook. So here's the first one, here's the second one, put 2 double crochets, 1 and 2 into that chain, then do 2 double crochets, so just 1 in each of the next 2, 1, 2, and next is the bit that I think will be new to a lot of people. We're going to work 4 double crochets into this last stitch and go around the end and turn to work back along this side. So put my hook in, 1 double crochet in there, 2 double crochets in there, it's beginning to turn, still into that same stitch, that's 3 and 4, and now I've come around that corner and I'm going to work back along the other side of the chain. So once I've done 4 in the last chain, rotating as you go to work into the other side of the chain, 2 double crochets and then 2 in the last one. So I can also lay this tail end across to crochet over it. 1 double crochet into that chain, 1 double crochet into that one, and then 2 in this last one, 1, and in the same stitch 2, and then it will be a slip stitch to join back into my first double crochet to create this oval shape. Round 2 of the beak is just 1 chain, 4 double crochets, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease, 1 double crochet 2 together, so decreases as we discussed earlier, 4 double crochets again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a decrease across those last 2 stitches. Slip stitch to join, and then we'd fasten off. That takes care of the beak, which would sit on the front of Daphne the Duck about there. The same technique working around this chain is also used for the blade of the trowel if you're making the gnomes. If you are making the bunny rabbit, something that's different here is how the flower is made. So I've got CC3, which is Go Grape, and my smaller hook, the 3mm one, and the flower starts with a chain of 20, so I'm just going to make a slip knot and pop that on my hook, and just like we've just discussed in the beak section, a chain is yarn over and pull through, so that's 1, 2, 3 and so on until you get to 20. Here are my 20 chains, and I'm ready for row 1, which says 3 double crochet in the second chain from the hook, so 1, 2, insert my hook into the chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops, that's 1. I need another in the same space, whoops, and a third in the same space. Then it says miss the next chain, 3 double crochets in the next chain 9 times. So miss 1, 3 double crochets in here. Oops. With the smaller hook, I'm finding sometimes the yarn splits a little bit, so just take your time, make sure you've got the whole of the strand of yarn before you pull through. Miss the next one, 3 in the next one, 1, 2, 3, and then you've missed the next one, 3 in the next one, and so on, all the way until you reach the end. This is how the end of row 1 looks. Row 2 tells us to do 2 chains, so 1, 2, and I'll turn. That 2 chain doesn't count as a stitch. Then it says do 1 treble. So a treble is yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. 2 trebles in the next stitch, so it's an increase, so another treble here, and a second one in the same stitch. Then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 1 slip stitch in the next missed chain on the foundation chain. So this is where it gets a little trickier to see, so I'll bring it a bit closer. The next missed chain, so it's going to be in between the 2 sets of 3, so I can see 3 double crochets there and 3 here, so my missed chain must be here. So slip stitches, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull through. That's a very interesting idea. So we're not working into the next stitch on the top, we're working into the chain on the bottom. So let's try that repeat again. We've got 1 treble, which is in my next stitch, which will be the first of those next 3. So 1 treble in there, 2 trebles in the next stitch, 1, 2, 1 treble in the next stitch. Is that right? Yeah. Then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and that slip stitch into the missed foundation chain again. So I'm looking in between my 2 blocks of 3 and slip stitching into the one that's in between there. I see, so that's creating petal shapes, and we continue doing that until we get to the end. And at the very end we've got 1 treble, 2 trebles in the next stitch, then 2 chains and a slip stitch in the last stitch. So go ahead and carry on until you get to that last section after the repeat, and we'll look at it together. Okay, I've continued along, and you can see this really wants to curl up on itself, which is what we're after, because we're going to be curling it up to make this flower. So I've just got to that last section, I've done the repeat. Now I need to do 1 treble in my next stitch, so here, 1 treble, 2 trebles in the next stitch, 1, 2, oops, 2, that's trying to look at the screen and look at this at the same time, and then 2 chains, 1, 2, and a slip stitch into my very last stitch to round off that end. Okay, and then it tells me to fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing, so I guess I'll leave about 30 centimetres, pull that through. Let's have a look at what we've got. So I can try and uncoil it a little bit. You can see all of these individual petals we've created with that 3 chain and slip stitch that pulls it back down, and then the trebles that pull it back up at each one. Okay, to sew this up you want to kind of stitch it down as you coil it up. So I've got the long tail end, I'm going to make be the centre of the flower, so I'm just going to fold that first petal and put a stitch through the base of that petal and through the foundation chain that I've folded through, and then bring the next one round, position it as I want it, and stitch through the chain and into the base of the petal, hold that in place, coil it again, catch the foundation chain into the base of the petal, and just keep folding it round and stitching it in place onto itself, catching that foundation chain, and the stitches at the base of the petal are sort of in the next ring in all the way around as far as you can. It's not an exact science, you position them so that you're happy with how your flower looks. Obviously this is the back, you turn it over to have a look at the front. I'm happy with it so far, so again into the foundation chain, to the base of the petal on the next round in, we're nearly there. Catch another chain, oops, and so on. Carry on until it's all secured down, then fasten off and you'll have a lovely flower. Obviously the other tail end you'll need to weave in. So once that's done, we'll take a look at the flower stigma that you need to sew into the centre of that. And looking at that, the flower stigma is quite straightforward. It's just a magic ring, as we've already practiced. 6 double crochets into that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Pull it tight and slip stitch back into the first one. Then we fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing, and you can use that tail end to sew that into the centre of your flower. And that's the flower complete for the bunny rabbit. We'll move on next and have a look at some of the features of the gnomes. So I've gone ahead and grabbed the clotted cream yarn, which is the yarn you'll be using for the gnome's nose. Try saying that 3 times quickly. And I want to take a look at that with you. It starts with a magic ring, the same as we've used for all the other parts, so I'll just go ahead and do that. And then round 1, I've got the 1 chain, 1 double crochet, so that's the same as before, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, and over through 2, then 2 half trebles, and a half treble is yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through. I've got 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, so that's 1, and we do that again, yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, that's 2 half trebles. Then 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and 2 more half trebles, so yarn over first, 1, 2, then 1 double crochet and a slip stitch to join. So I'll pull the tail end, find my first stitch and slip stitch. So adding those half trebles enables us to have this slightly oval shape instead of a round one. Round 2 is 1 chain, I've done that, 1 double crochet, so that'll be in the same stitch I've slip stitched into. Then 2 half trebles in the next stitch twice, so we're increasing with half trebles. Oops, 1, 2, oh dear, and again in the next one, 1, 2, and 2 double crochets, so these are not increases, 1 in each stitch, 1, 2, and then 2 half trebles in the next stitch twice again, so we're increasing in each of the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and in the next one, 1, 2, 1 double crochet, and then join again. Now when it comes to joining, here is my slip stitch from last time and my chain 1, my first stitch is there. Just make sure you're joining in the right place. So slip stitch to join, round 3 is 1 chain and just double crochet around, so that should be 12 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Slip stitch to join again. There's the slip stitch in the chain from the last round. Here's where I join, and then we'd fasten off, and that makes the nose shape from the front of our gnome. Continuing with the gnomes, the finishing of the arms is something else that we need to just quickly take a look at. So I've gone ahead and done rounds 1 to 10. They start with a magic ring. We've got 8 stitches all the way up, and then once you finish round 10, the next one says row 11, so we're not going to be working around for the next part, we're going to be working just across. It says flatten the top of the arm and work through both layers to close. So I'm just going to make sure that all my stuffing is squashed inside like so. I'll put this loop back on my hook, and I'm pushing the 2 sides of my circle together to make a flat row for myself with 2 layers. And I'm going to do 1 chain, and then I'm going to do 4 double crochet. So the idea is that I'm going through 1 on this side and 1 on the back layer as well. Yarn over, pull through, find my next stitch on the front and the next one on the back, so both strands of both stitches laying over the hook. Yarn over, pull through, that's 2, and again for 3, and again for 4, and then I can fasten off, leave a long tail end for sewing on, and you'll see that's close the top of the arm and flatten that shape out so that it'll sit nicely against the body at the armpit. So that's the arms sorted. The next thing I'd like to look at with you is the beard for the gnomes. I've gone ahead and done rounds 1 to 5 because there's nothing different there. It's all double crochets with increases and worked into a magic ring to start with. But round 6 says 1 chain, then 2 half trebles in the next stitch twice. So into that first stitch, 1 half treble and another, and also into the second stitch, 1 half treble and another. Then 3 double crochet 2 together, so we're doing 3 decreases in a row. So insert hook, yarn over, pull through, insert in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through all 3, that's 1. We do a second one of those and a third one, so 3 decreases in a row. Then 2 half trebles in the next stitch 4 times, so we're increasing in each of the next 4 stitches. So there's my first half treble and my second in the first stitch, and again in the second stitch, and in the third stitch, and in the fourth stitch. So that's those increases. Then another lot of 3 decreases, so those double crochet 2 together again. 1, 2, 3, and 2 half trebles in the next stitch twice, so we've got 2 stitches left and they're both going to be increase ones with half trebles. So 2 half trebles in there and 2 half trebles in the last one. Then we can join with the slip stitch, and that's round 6 completed. So you can see it started to shape where it's going to fit onto the face. Round 7 says 1 chain, 2 half trebles, 1, 2, 7 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 half trebles, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and finally, oh not finally, sorry, 7 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then 2 half trebles at the end, 1 and 1 in the last stitch. There we go, and join. Then we'll fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing again. Let's take a look at how that shape looks. Okay, it says to flatten the beard with increases at the sides and indent for nose in the centre. So where my tail end is, that's the side where the increases will be, and on the other side. And when you flatten it out like this, you can just begin to see there's a dip in the centre for where the nose will sit. So that's how it should look when the beard is complete. The apron for the gnomes is worked in rows rather than round, so instead of starting with a magic ring, we're starting with a slip knot. So I do that with a loop and then push the working yarn through the loop, pop that on my hook, and a chain of 10. So chain, remember, is yarn over and pull through. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And row 1, so starting in the second chain from the hook, 9 double crochets and then turn. So my second chain isn't here, it's here. So insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1. And again for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And then for rows 2 to 4 it's 1 chain and double crochet across, turn. So I've got my first row, do 1 chain and turn it to work back along the top of the stitches that I've just done. You've probably done this before, but just in case this is your first time working in rows, we're now going to work into the top of the stitches that we just created and work 9 double crochets back along, and then we'll turn around for the next row, 1 chain and carry on. This is what row 1 to 4 looks like completed. Row 5 starts again with a 1 chain and then 8 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Once we've got 8 stitches, we do 3 double crochets in the last stitch to turn the corner. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Rotate the work to work across row ends, evenly place 3 double crochets across the row ends. So I'm going to put 1 here, 1 in the next one, 2 and 1 in the last row end, 3. Then rotate to work to the underside of the foundation chain, 3 double crochets in the first chain. So I'm working along the bottom of the piece now. The first chain is here, so I'll put 3 in there, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, 7 double crochets across, so 1 in each one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, then 3 in the last chain to turn the corner again, 2, 3, so we're working along the last short edge, and then we're doing 3 across the side, 1, 2, 3, 2 double crochet in the same stitch as the beginning double crochet. So find the first one, it's here, so I'll put 2 more in there, 1, 2 and a slip stitch to join. Is that right? Let me just look. Join with a slip stitch to the beginning double crochet. There we go. Then 30 chains to create the waistband. So chain, remember, is yarn over and pull 3. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on. Here we go, there's 30, and then it says do not fasten off. Wrap the 30 chain waistband around the waist of the gnome without beard. Slip stitch in the opposite upper corner of the apron to secure. So you'll wrap it around the waist and then you'll slip stitch back into this top corner here so that it fits around your gnome. Now I haven't made the body of the gnome yet, so I haven't got a gnome to put it onto, but you get the idea. So that's the apron sorted. One more thing on the gnomes to look at is the braids. So it tells me to cut 5 33cm lengths of C, so I've gone ahead and done that. It says work with all 5 strands held evenly together, so try and make sure all of the ends are together. With the larger hooks, that's the 4mm hook, and leaving a short tail at the beginning of the work, make a slip knot. So I'm going to take all 5 together, create a loop, and then push a loop through of all 5. So I've got a short tail and a slip knot made of all 5 strands of yarn. Pop the hook in and then chain 6. So I'm going to wrap all of those strands over and pull them through. 1, 2, 3, 4, careful, don't drop any, 5 and 6, and then I can pull that last one all the way through to create the braid, and then you'll use tail ends to sew it in place on the head, and you can trim this so that it looks neat and tidy at the bottom. Moving on now to the hedgehog, I would like to show you how these spines are made. So it tells us with B to chain 23, and then row 1 is starting in the second chain from the hook, 22 double crochets and turn. So I've done that. I don't need to demonstrate that part to you. Row 2, however, I do. So we do 1 chain and turn, a double crochet in the first stitch, and then here's the interesting bit, 1 slip stitch, 5 chain, and 1 slip stitch in the front loop only of the next stitch, all the way across to the last stitch, and then finish with a double crochet. So I'll bring it a little closer. Looking at the top, we're working into the front loops only, how we talked about earlier in the video. I'm going to slip stitch into that front loop, do 5 chains, yarn over, pull through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then slip stitch into that stitch again. Then move on to the next front loop, slip stitch, 5 chains, oops, 5, and slip stitch again into there. So each front loop's got a slip stitch, 5 chains, and another slip stitch in it, all the way across, and then put a double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, here's row 2 completed. It wants to go all curly. You can see those loops add a lot of curl to it. Once we've finished that, the pattern says in the next row and all the following odd rows, the half treble stitches will be placed in the remaining loop of the previous odd row. So let's start row 3 and see how that looks. So we do 1 chain, 1 double crochet, which is in the top of the double crochet that ended our last row, and then 20 half trebles in the front loops only, 2 rows below. So bringing that a little closer, you can see along here this line of unused loops. So I'm going to bend this away from me, start my half treble with a yarn over, find that unworked loop from row 1, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through all 3. So that's 1, find my next unworked loop, 2, and so on. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and the effect is it's pushing those spines that we've created on the right side to the front. Okay, so I've done a few stitches there, and you can see on the other side how it's pushing those spines to the front. So that's row 3, and carry on and finish that, and then rows 4 to 19 are just repeating rows 2 and 3 all the way through to create rows and rows of spines. I've gone ahead and done another short section of a row just so you can see how they look once they start stacking up. The only other thing that you need to know on the spines is when you get to row 21 there start being some decreases that are half treble 2 togethers. So it looks like a 1 hitru 2 tug, a half treble 2 together, and to do that I'll just demonstrate one decrease on the back of here. So you start your half treble with a yarn over, insert hook in your next unworked loop, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over again to start a second one in the next unworked loop, yarn over, pull through, 5 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 5 loops, and that will decrease. That's everything that you need to know to be able to work the spine section for the hedgehog. Okay, I think this is the last thing I want to show you in this video, and it's how to do the bobble stitches for Barbara the sheep. So I'm looking at round 1 for the head and body. I've done with A, working into a magic ring, 6 double crochet, join with a slip stitch to the beginning double crochet. I've done that. Round 2, so there's 1 chain, and then 1 bubble, 1 double crochet in each stitch around. So a bubble is yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So you're starting a treble, but you're not finishing. That's 1. Do the same again, start a treble, but don't finish it. So that's 2. 3 trebles started and 4 trebles started. So I've got 5 loops on my hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 5 loops. And we're also going to do a double crochet into the same stitch. And then repeat that bubble in the next stitch. Yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2. That's once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, all in that same stitch. 5 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 5, and a double crochet in the same stitch. And the side we're working from, you won't see them, but you can see them on the other side. Creates these lovely little bobbles that will imitate the sheep's wool. That just about covers everything that I think we need to know for making these plushies. I hope you're enjoying them. If there's anything I've missed that you need any more help with, do get in touch and I can add some clips to this. Enjoy your makes and I'll catch you next time. Bye!